Hey there, V2X Nation and friends. This is Hope Skibitsky, the Learning and Development Manager at V2X. And you're with us here on Converging on Leadership, the place where we use transparency, vulnerability, and lessons learned to develop ties with our leadership to help us better serve all of our internal and external customers.
Hey podcasters, can you picture yourself with a challenging, rewarding career as a commercial and defense contractor? Maybe you're already working for V2X and would like to expand your horizons with a new opportunity, or you're interested in getting started with us. V2X is here for you. We have a wide array of job openings, some for those who want to support the United States military warfighters, and for those of you who are interested in the ultra-secure world for one of our country's three-letter agencies. We pride ourselves in developing our employees for future opportunities. Did we mention we have locations and positions all across the globe? If you are interested in a rewarding profession that pays well with competitive benefits, check out our website at gov2x.com/careers.
Hello again, and welcome back to the V2X podcast, Converging on Leadership. And we are here with our Senior Vice President, Sue Deagle. So, Sue, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah.
Things maybe we wouldn't find on your bio.
Okay, great. And I'm super happy to be here and have this conversation.
Glad
I'm looking
you're here.
forward to seeing where it goes today, Hope. So thanks for having me.
Great.
So again, I'm Senior Vice President here at V2X, but what I do also in my spare time, in addition to being the mom of two challenging and wonderful post-teenagers, is I actually write a blog called The Luminist, where I am focused on changing the conversation around loss and grief in our culture, because I believe we can all live really vibrant lives if we just talk about those things a little bit more. So that's
I love
my
it.
side hustle passion project, in addition to all the time consumed at my V2X role, which I love.
Well, I love it. I mean, I think that it's cool that you have your own you outside of work. Sometimes people get so absorbed, they forget to have their own you, so that's good. But I really love that your own you is super vulnerable, but it's getting people talking. That's a great thing to do, because people are what we do. And so today we're here to talk about taking care of your team.
Yeah, a topic I so love. At V2X, we're very, very focused on our diversity, equity, and inclusion part of what we do. Mr. Pro, our CEO, says DEI is not a thing, it's the thing. And my belief on DEI is that it's all about caring about people. Like, if you care about people, then you want people to have opportunity, right? And so we kind of wrap our mission around that. We're a services business. We have 15,000 people around the globe in every time zone, and caring about our people and caring about our teams is sort of the first order of business to make our business work.
That's 100%. I mean, I spent my time in the military, and what we always knew is it didn't matter what new widget, gadget, expensive toy you had, it didn't work or function without the human behind it. So yeah. I love that your focus is taking care of us. I'm going to call myself in that team.
Yeah, you should, for sure.
So, Sue, you and I were speaking earlier, and I mentioned that we might have some people listening that are experienced leaders, but maybe are looking for a new strategy, or have some people who've never been somebody else's leader formally. What would you say is the most important thing about taking care of your team, or the thing you need to have to take good care of your team?
Yeah, I think you have to have a fundamental respect for your team. Right? So often as leaders, sometimes we think our teams are like a means to an end. But in my point of view, the leader, myself, I'm just there to kind of guide and give direction. Maybe 20% of the time I need to insert myself, but 80% of the time it's my team shining. And I think being a true leader is recognizing and letting your team shine, making sure that you're developing them and enriching them, and then just running interference for them whenever they need that. You hire people and you bring people onto your team and you train them. So then why would you turn around and micromanage them, make sure that they're making deliverables that aren't value added? You really have to think about the fact that they are your success. You're accountable for them. And of course, sometimes that gets us a little itchy because we want to jump in and do everything for our team. But that's no way to develop our team, and that's no way to develop ourselves.
I love that. I think it's really good. Laissez-faire leadership gets a bad rap because people think it means like fire and forget. But in reality, it's supposed to be trust but verify, right? So how do you know? What gives you an idea when somebody doesn't feel cared for? Are you attuned to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're just really unhappy with their job, right? Like you know how it is with your peers, right? You talk about what's going well and what's not going well, and your peers help you adjust. Oh, maybe you might try this strategy. Maybe you can course correct here. Maybe you can have a conversation with your boss that involves these things, right? And when people don't feel like they can go the extra mile and have those conversations that sometimes are a little bit scratchy, then you know that they're not really happy in what they're doing. People are so good at what they do, and that's why they're doing their job, and they get passion and joy out of it. So why are we going to rain on their parade and be like, I'm going to come over the back of the chair and I'm going to do this for you? No, like, you hired them for a reason. You put them in that team for a reason. You created your little ecosystem for a reason. So let people unfold, let their capabilities unfold, let them grow. Sure, you're still, again, going to be watching and making sure nothing goes sideways. But when you have an open communication about that, then you grow a team that makes you even more successful. So you can kind of look at that in a little bit of a selfish way. The more I let my team expand and do what they need to do and not be monitoring them every second, the more powerful I become.
So dig into that with me for a little bit, because sometimes people are scarred. Maybe they have the history of working for a leader that would have chided or abused them if they were to ask questions or not been perfect out of the chute. So if you recognize that someone needs a little bit of guidance, but they're not necessarily receptive to feedback, how would you get into that, but doing it in a way that would invite them to reciprocate?
Yeah, I think the first thing you do is storytelling, right? You always want to relate a story about when you had a bad boss and that boss did XYZ to me, right? That boss rechecked all my deliverables. That boss changed my happies to glad. And I don't thrive in that environment. So when you're relating something about yourself, you're telling a story about how your leadership is, but through something that happened to you in the past. So you're giving a little bit of a breadcrumb. Oh, this is what I didn't like when I was being led. So that person can understand, well, maybe this is different. Maybe hope will lead me in a different way than I had been led before. And so you can be slightly open to that. And then it's also a matter of being honest. If we're just starting to work together, we're not going to get everything right out of the gate. Right. So let's acknowledge and let's make a commitment for when things don't feel right or they don't feel, they feel, again, a little bit scratchy. Let's come around, maybe not in the heat of the moment. Like, this is something I counsel my son, my 20-year-old son at the time, in his relationships. Hey, right now is not the time to have this heart-to-heart conversation. Wait till the moment has passed when you guys gain your equilibrium again and then have the conversation. Because I think as a leader, when things go sideways, but sometimes in the moment when somebody's already feeling pinned to the wall, it's not time to say, hey, well, let's pause for a second. Let's break it down. No, let's take a deep breath and wait for the next day and say, listen, I want to acknowledge that feedback that I was giving you might have been hard to receive. Tell me how you received it. Tell me how it would land better for you. I'm not perfect. I've been at this for a really long time.
That's right.
But we're all just having human to human interactions, which are so individual. Everybody is having their own bad day or bad morning when they tried to get out of the house and the kids wouldn't get into the car, or they forgot to pick up the milk and now they're in trouble. Like, everyone has a thing that's going on with them, and we have to be sensitive to that and know that we're not perfectly ourselves every day of the week. So
that's right.
Let it cool down and have a conversation.
So I consider myself a yogi. I'm probably not as good as my brain thinks I am. But in doing it, some of the folks that I follow say, like, today you might be super flexible on your left side and tomorrow not even be able to move it. And that's okay, right? You've got to work with what is right for you today. So I love that you're talking about flexibility. The thing I want to dig into a little bit is, you mentioned that in your blog, your authentic self has you get into some tough conversations. So I want to draw some dots together that maybe don't touch. When you say, open up the conversation, leave the door open. So when you sit down with a new subordinate or a new coworker, is that when you broach the subject on, hey, I'm always available for you? Or how do you give someone the invitation to talk to you, even when maybe they don't feel like they could talk?
Yeah, that's a perfect question, right? Because some people, they're afraid of the boss, right? That's just a natural dynamic that we were kind of raised up with hierarchy.
Sure.
And I think people can tell out of the gate, I'm not a terrifically hierarchical person. And I'm not going to totally knock that style, because there are some instances where that is needed, probably in your past experience in the military, right? And with so many of our folks at V2X, more than 40% of our team are veterans. So they're used to that hierarchical part. And that's okay, right? It has its time and place. Now that we're in the sort of the corporate public company business world, I don't think hierarchy serves us quite as well as when you're taking the hill. Like that's a very
right.
different thing. And so stylistically, I'm always very careful to say, I brought you onto this team and you are the expert. You are the person who's really good at this particular item. And I've had to do a lot of different roles throughout my career. And I am never the subject matter expert. Like I never look at myself that way. I look at myself as the generalist who knows how to make decisions and knows how to lead. So it's not a faux humbleness to say, listen, Hope, you just joined my team. You're super good at this. You know exactly what you're doing. You and I will decide together how to do things, but I'm going to lean so hard on you for your SME stuff, and then we'll decide together. So kind of setting people up for that's why you're here. And I, as the boss, am just here to provide top cover, enrich you and develop you, and to let you shine.
I love that. I mean, I hate to seem like the person that's so thirsty for this particular topic, but in reality, I have loved most the leaders that are like an inch deep and a mile wide, right? They know just enough to know who to talk to, who their subject matter experts are, to get clarification on a point or two, but they don't necessarily feel like they've got to be encyclopedia of all things. And so I appreciate that. I think
when you do that, then, you're doing your people's job. And that's not what you hire them for.
That's right.
You need to bring them to the table. And we are so blessed at V2X that we have people all around the globe. And every time I go and visit a site or a program or a customer, I'm thirsty for knowledge about what they're doing so that I can do those things a leader does better, which is support them, run interference for them.
Right.
Hey, how's this working? How's the IT system working for you? Are you getting the support you need out of corporate? Is the finance team, really partnering up with you? How's HR doing? So I ask those questions, not as gotchas, not as like, hey, prove to me what you know. We're not about that at all. It's more, are we all working collaboratively together? Because that's the running interference part of the program. And by learning just an inch deep what they do, I'm able to speak to investors better about it. I'm able to talk to internal audiences, our board of directors, and really share how spectacular our people are, which is sort of like my pride and joy around here.
I think that's really good, letting people be people. So let's talk about the team portion of this. We know that there's a lot of different attitudes, experiences, backgrounds that make up a team, and sometimes there's conflict, and that's not abnormal. But how would you as a leader take care of your team but still find a way to work them through their conflict?
Yeah, and it's a great point because, again, we're just humans in the workplace,
That's
just
right.
like we're humans at home. And at home, we don't have a facilitated session on how to work through things. But when we share a common objective as a team and people are maybe in their triggered moment, right? Not getting to end a job because, Sue's attitude today is just really bugging them and they're kind of tired of her, right? Again, that's a time for us to kind of pause and say, what's the mission? And we're blessed that we have this very, very defined mission, right? Which is to support the warfighter around the globe in myriad different ways and to support our clients. So I like to refocus people on what we're actually here for. And I like the strategic use of timeouts. I like the strategic use of you know what, this meeting, we're not getting anywhere today. Let's pause. And then I think there's some individual conversations. Here's what I noticed, right? I think that Hope is really, when she talks about this, she's really triggering you. What's at the bottom of that? But you're not doing a public appraisal or a public embarrassment. You're ending an ineffective meeting. You're pulling the participants apart and you're having, after a few hours of calm, a bit of self-reflection, right? That's that again always starts with my self-reflection. I have to lead the way. I have to say, it did really bother me whenever she did that because I don't like it when people are grandstanding or people are taking credit for other people. What are your hot buttons? Right? So you're allowing people, you're not just like, hey, what went wrong in that meeting?
That's right.
And then the person is thinking to themselves, well, is she going to just take advantage of what I'm saying here? Is she going to run and tell Hope what I said behind the scenes? Right? You have to have that trust with people. And the first step to trust is being vulnerable yourself.
It's like you're a leadership cartographer, like you're laying out this map, but you're identifying where all the landmines are. So at least you're aware of it, right?
Exactly. And you're helping bring awareness to others. That self-reflection, It sounds a little bit woo-woo, and it sounds like things that I talk about on the Luminist on my blog. But at the same time, self-reflection needs to be happening at work.
That's right.
So we can be more effective and we can know our own triggers. All of us know we're not perfect. All of us know that we have biases and we see things that sometimes are not there depending on how we are today, right? Depending on if our right side is stretchier than our left side,
Right.
like you were saying in your yogi example. We have to be open to saying, well, maybe it's not just Hope's fault that I feel this way. What is it about Sue today, right? How can I turn the mirror to myself and say, okay, what is going on with me today? Wow, that really made me more mad than I thought. Why don't I go take a walk around the building and think about that for a minute, right?
I think that's great.
Rather than just submerging ourselves in othering the other person, right? Because then as teams, we're never going to function well that way.
Well, and then sometimes we feel compelled to get Freudian and identify what is going on with people when in
Yeah.
reality, the only one who knows what's going on in them is them.
Yeah, and I'm super big on intent, right? So we because we're human beings and we're storytellers, and we used to do that around the fire, in our caveman days. That's how we understand the world. And so sometimes when a team member or a peer of mine does, sort of engages in something that behavior I think is abnormal, I think to myself, well, that's because X, Y, Z. I assign them intent, and that is a trap, and we must be careful that we don't know what's going on in somebody else's brain, so we cannot assign intent to them. And I'm very, very cautious about that. We don't know their stories. We don't know what happened to them today.
That's right. So there's like a leadership quote that says, if you want everyone to like you, sell ice cream, right? And so being a leader doesn't always mean you're winning the popularity contest.
Yeah.
And so if you're leading a team and that team is demonstrating discord and some of it aimed at you for whatever your decision or whatever, how do you continue to take care of your team when you feel the discomfort yourself because it's aimed at you?
Yeah, you feel accused in some way, right? That you're the source of the problem. So that's a really hard thing. You yourself get triggered in those circumstances. You're like, this isn't my fault. The fact that this project is going sideways isn't something that I did, but everybody's mad at me because I am the leader.
That's right.
Right? And that's the flip side of accountability. And that's another thing I'm really, really big on. We are accountable for how our teams perform. So in those situations, you have to pull yourself out of the emotional churn that's happening inside of your gut, right? Wait, they don't like me. Wait, this is going sideways. No, what is the objective of what our team is supposed to achieve? And sometimes you can just say, you know what, today we're just not all going to like each other. And that's okay. We are here to achieve an objective. Can we still achieve this objective and not like each other? I bet we can. So let's all take a deep breath, take it down a notch, decide what needs to be parsed out to get to end of job. And we don't have to have a group hug at the end of this, but we do have to perform and we do have to deliver for the business. And sort of the flip side of that is sometimes in taking care of our team, we think is defending our team, no matter what they do, because we love our team, and I've seen a lot of leaders over time, when you give them feedback, hey, listen, your guy, Bob, he did this thing. That leader's like, no, Bob's not like that. Bob would never do that. You have to be cautious as a leader to also not be defending your team at all costs.
That's right.
You have to understand, oh, maybe you're right. Oh, I recognize that pattern in Bob. Maybe it's only happening outside of our team, but I need to speak to Bob about that because it's limiting effectiveness. So loyalty at all costs is also a trap we need to make sure we're avoiding.
Oh, you mentioned a couple of points that I find really interesting. One, it's okay to acknowledge our inner toddler. Sometimes that youngin' needs a nap, right? Like
Yes,
it just
for sure.
needs a nap.
Right.
But I think it's also important that we recognize that putting a mint on everyone's pillow isn't necessarily going to help them get better. Sometimes recognizing when someone has faulted or flawed, guiding them through that and helping them get better is the best way to lead them. Not is it to protect them and then find a way to make look whatever they did be good.
You're not developing them. You're
That's
not doing
right.
them any favors. You're not going to help them go to the next level if they have an Achilles heel that they haven't been able to overcome. And you've been plastering it over. That's not how we lead. I think development and enrichment are also like the tough conversations. Listen, this is how the team is receiving you. And 9 times out of 10, when I have a conversation with someone and I say, listen, the team is receiving you as like really harsh and only wanting your own way, the other person is like, oh my God, thank you for telling me. they are appreciative of that because we're here to make them more effective, not just to make them continue to be the person that they are. People want to grow and change. They want the respect of their peers and their leaders and their subordinates. So why wouldn't development be a part of that? And that is
Right.
sometimes having a hard conversation.
That's right. I mean, I think too, if we truly love our teams, which is what I hope we do, right? Love and care
do.
for our people.
We do.
If we truly love our teams, part of that love is tough love. And so you've got to be willing to course correct. Otherwise, you're going to let people just run astray and no one's going to accomplish anything.
Yeah, and I actually brought a prop with me today. People who know me inside V2X know that I'm really super big on the books. So I have a giant bookshelf in my and this book, Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. She quotes an Air Force manual. I think that was first put together when the Air Force was formed in the 40s, and in that original Air Force manual, they use the word love like 50 times. So many, because it's a love for your comrade, for your fellow airmen. And as the Air Force manual has been updated over time, the use of the word love has drained out of it, but it hasn't drained out of our hearts, right? Because we know that humanness, that, all the things that you are trained for in the military to be really in lockstep with your group, that applies to business as well, and that requires love.
That's
and
right.
and the fact that that we say love in the workplace, some people might be like, oh my gosh, wait, what kind of podcast is this? But that you actually do have a kind of love for your team, a love for your coworkers, a love for your organization. There's no shame in that game. That's actually bringing the most of your humanity to work.
That's right. And the thing is, I think if we demonstrate that love for our people, they'll make it more than just a job. They'll see it as a connection, a relationship, a passion, a future. I think it's a great way toward retention because who knows what people are or aren't getting even in their own personal lives. And so to know that they're loved by their team, I think would make a big difference.
I agree.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about where a leader might begin in learning to connect with their people. Like if I'm a new leader and I have no experience at this and all of my experiences of being led maybe weren't the best, where might I jump in learning to connect with people on my team?
I mean, I'm a big reader, and so I like to, if there's a concept or a leadership concept, I like to know a framework or a roadmap in my head first, then I'm executing next. So there's so many leadership books out there. This one I just quoted, Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, is so good. I think that would be a really awesome place to start. She also has a bunch of podcasts on that same kind of thing. Once you kind of know the theory behind leadership, then it's time to kind of bury your soul to that and be in connection with other people. And people don't think leadership is that sometimes, but I really don't know. Like from a personal point of view, I don't know how you lead if your people don't know you and if they don't trust you. So once you sort of have a little bit of the theory in your head about what feels right to you as a leader, that openness with your team, a really good cadence of getting together with your team. Sometimes we let our teams wander off in the wilderness and then we're like, wait, how did that get sideways, right? You have to be with people. You have to spend time with people. And that doesn't always have to be in the middle of making a PowerPoint presentation together or in the middle of serving a client together. Sometimes those casual, like, hey, let's just eat our lunch together today. Or, I brought donuts this morning. Let's hang out and have some coffee for 15 minutes. Making connections as a human being, I think, first and foremost, plants the seeds for you to have a really connected team. So again, it's like sort of back to the theory. What kind of leader do you want to be? And I think listening to podcasts and reading sets you up for that. And then when you step in, this is like being in connection with people. That's the thing you have to think about first and foremost, building trust and building connection. And also as a new leader, I don't think there's any harm in saying, this is my first time as a new leader to your team. Right? We always try to hide parts of ourselves from people as if they can't figure that out, right? Rather than asking them to co-create with you. They're co-creating your leadership. I think one of the most special things that you can have is in our workforce, we have a lot of people who have been in the workforce for decades. And those people may not have wanted to be the leader, but they're the subject matter expert at what they do. Really, pairing up with them and saying, I'm new to this and I really like any insights or observations, after meetings or, during our really heated times that you can talk to me about afterwards. I would appreciate that. And then you get that kind of mentoring too. Everybody has a role to mentor you. I kind of joke around because we have a lot of great mentoring programs at V2X and my mentees are always like, oh, Sue, thank you so much for that. And I was like, are you kidding? Like I have a page of notes. Like you taught me a bunch in this conversation. It's that openness to a two-way street in all circumstances that builds us as leaders. And you think, well, I'm leading the team. I should be aloof and I should be large and in charge and I should be all those things. I don't believe in that philosophy. I believe that our teams teach us how to be leaders.
That's the respect you mentioned in the very beginning. And the thing I like about that is it allows someone else to feel like the subject matter expert in the eyes of their own leader. Like, what can I bring to this conversation so it's not always me on receive mode?
Yeah, so good. And then you feel empowered by
Yes.
that. Right? And empowering your teams is the surest way to lead a really strong and vibrant team.
Well, as you know, I'm relatively new to the company. And so in working with Brooke and Randy, my teammates, in the beginning, we would have conversations and I would ask a lot of questions, but it would roll into what'd you do this weekend? We'd be 20 minutes into the conversation and have accomplished nothing more than what all we did. And Randy would say, oh, I'm so sorry I've allowed us to get derailed. And I'm like, I love it. I love it. Like getting to know you guys makes us feel more connected as a team, which I think would then lead me to feel comfortable enough to ask you if I had a problem or had a question.
Exactly. Yeah, and I never think those like I start all my meetings like that, a little bit of kibitzing.
Yeah.
What did you do this weekend, or what's on your mind, or et cetera. And people are shy at first, right? They're more worried about talking in front of their peers actually than talking to you as their leader. But we're just making a little bit of connection, and that's how our brains are wired. Right? Whenever we want to go and do something hard together, we have to be connected first.
Yeah, it's genuine care. Genuine care, that love we mentioned already. It can't just be robotic. People recognize it. I mean, we're not silly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can see right through when someone's sort of faking it till they make it. And, I'm not saying that every leadership style has to mimic my leadership style or your leadership style, but you do have to find your own style. And that's a trial and error thing. So we shouldn't be, sad or ashamed when something that we tried didn't work so great. We'll get into a rhythm after a while, but when our team trusts us, we can kind of say that, hey, I tried this thing. It didn't work very well. I'm accountable for this and this is my fault. Let's move on and we're going to try something different. Like, so what's wrong? We're all in experimentation mode about how to be the best person at work.
Gosh, you just mentioned a few things. Transparency. Hey, I recognize I did a thing wrong. Accountability, vulnerability. Those are things I think are huge in one, being a leader, but two, in taking care of your teams. Have you ever found a time that your leadership style didn't lend itself immediately to that vulnerability and it didn't serve you well? Like an example of, I should have just done it the way I know to do it.
Yeah, I think that there are sometimes you have to be careful at work that you're not oversharing as well, right? And I'm a very relaxed, kind of casual leader, and that doesn't suit everybody's style. And so when I meet new people, when we come together for integrations, I have to make sure that I'm reading the room. I don't just get to impose my style on other people. And what I mostly do is then just ask questions about them, right? I'm genuinely interested in them. Oh, tell me, I just heard you had two granddaughters, in a row there. That's so great. Like, knowing things about people and being genuinely interested. So there's no way to fake being genuinely interested. And I am genuinely interested. And then that way I'm not doing like the oversharing on my part. I'm meeting people, I'm making a connection, I'm remembering something about them. And then when I see them again, we're reflecting back on that. And it's not like, how did that deliverable go that you just, had to give to the government? These are personal things. So I try to make sure that I'm gauging when people are more formal at work. And, with our veteran population, some people are more formal and some people are more casual. You just have to read the room for that, what people have been doing for the last 15, 20, 25 years of their career, and make sure that you're matching them. As a leader, it's actually my job to match my team's style, not the other way around. Because they're the unit of effectiveness. They're who's producing all the great work. So if I'm like, no, we're all going to do it this way and you're going to that just doesn't make any sense to me, right? I'm trying to bring out the best in them, and that's not by changing them.
Yeah, they'd be functioning out of their best form.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, you talked today about respect and love and vulnerability, taking care of our teams, leading with authenticity. I think that all of those things are things that any leader should, put into their pocket and use on the regular. Is there anything about taking care of your teams that we didn't talk about today that you think we should not leave on the table?
Yeah, I think we've covered like what's really important about it, and a genuine sense of caring. If you feel cared for by your boss, right? That's kind of a tough one. Sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. But it's your job to transmit down to your team that caring, no matter how you might be getting treated at one moment or another. It's not like, whenever we get mad, the metaphor is, well, I'm going to go kick the dog, like as if the dog did anything.
That's right.
And if your leader isn't performing in a way that empowers you, that's not an excuse to kick the dog, right? That is a reason to say, well, so much of what we see at work sometimes is how we don't want to be. And you absorb that lesson, you will serve your time with this boss that isn't a good fit for you, and you will move on from there. But you will not take that lesson and use that technique that you didn't like on your own team. It will remind you time and time again, that's not the kind of leader I want to be. So I think that's just as important.
I love that. So here you are trudging your way through the jungle and you get hit with branches. And so rather than fling the branch and let it smack the person behind you, you're going to hold on to it and let us walk through.
Exactly
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You got it.
All right. Well, this was fun, Sue. I really appreciated spending time with you.
Fantastic. So fun.
So come back and spend a little time with us as we get into our next topic with Sue Deagle, where we get into talking about influencing others. Please subscribe to Converging on Leadership on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Find us on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/company/V2X-Inc. And please let us know what you think of our show and what future topics you'd like us to cover. Converging on Leadership is produced by kglobal and brought to you by V2X. V2X transforms operations and sustainment for government and commercial clients worldwide through operational support services, training, and converged environments that integrate physical and digital infrastructures. Learn more at gov2x.com. And until next week, I'm Hope Skibitsky, and thanks for listening.